One of the biggest strengths of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, in my opinion, is the fact that it did an excellent job at introducing us to new locations in the Wizarding World pretty early on, without it feeling overwhelming, as well as balancing new locations with locations we were already familiar with. In the previous episode, for my vision of the new HBO Harry Potter show, we visited the Burrow for the first time, and in this episode I will be exploring my vision for episode 2 of the show, where we will finally see Knockturn Alley. We will also get our first introduction to a certain fraudulent professor, and for that reason I've decided to name this episode after what is actually the chapter title for chapter 6 of the book. However, I do think it is more fitting here. So let's jump into Harry Potter Season 2, Episode 2, Gilderoy Lockhart. The previously on Harry Potter recap is pretty brief for this episode, with it quickly covering the events of Dobby's warning, the escape from the Dursleys in a flying car, and Harry's mishap with the flu powder. We are reminded of him crashing out of the fireplace into a dark and mysterious shop, and before he can leave, he sees Draco Malfoy and his father outside the shop preparing to open the door to enter. We then move into the cold open for this episode. However, it's not quite as dark as in the previous episode where we saw Dobby overhearing a certain conversation. We open with an advert reminiscent of old-timey TV and radio ads. Obviously there are no TVs in the Wizarding World, so this would most likely be a Wizarding Wireless advert. However, we will see some visuals that go along with it. We see a handsome man grinning at the camera wearing bright blue robes as a voice introduces us to Gilderoy Lockhart, the renowned author, Order of Merlin 3rd class holder, and 5 times winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. The voice informs us of his many achievements in the line of defense against the dark arts, and he will be appearing at Flourish and Blotts later that day to sign copies of his autobiography, Magical Me. Gilderoy Lockhart winks at the camera, flashes those bright white teeth. We cut to black to cue the title sequence. Before we go on, please remember to hit the subscribe button and like the video, it will really help me out, and also hit the notification bell so you're updated for this upcoming project. We then cut to Harry in fear and shock as Draco Malfoy and his father prepare to enter Borgin Burkes. Harry wheels around and spots a large cabinet which he instantly hops inside of. I really want the show to linger slightly on the exterior of this cabinet, as we actually know that it will be the same vanishing cabinet that appear in both the 5th and 6th books, the latter of which being an integral part of the story. It doesn't need to be explicit in exactly what the cabinet is, but again it's just a nice little Easter egg for fans to see, knowing how important that will be in a later season. Harry then listens to the conversation between the Malfoys, and I really want the show to include this conversation as it shows a side to Draco that we never got to see in the movies. Basically, him being a whiny little git. We see Draco complaining about the fact that he isn't on the Quidditch team when he inspects the Hand of Glory, which provides light to only the holder, something that will become pretty important in a later season, and he complains about the teachers all having favourites, including Hermione. In the movies, we saw him being a bully and a coward, but we never really got to see any interaction between him and his parents, and it's something that the show will hopefully include more of. Harry then witnesses Lucius selling his objects to Mr. Borgin, which was actually a deleted scene from the Chamber of Secrets movie, and this scene will play out very similar to that deleted scene. Once Lucius and Draco leave the shop, Harry exits as well and finds himself in Knockturn Alley. And I really want the show to develop this area a little bit more than what we saw in the Chamber of Secrets and Half-Blood Prince movies. In these movies, we only really saw a couple of small dark alleyways, and I really want the show to develop it even more. The rest of the scene then plays out very similar to the movie, with Hagrid finding Harry, bringing him to Diagon Alley and meeting up with the Weasleys and Hermione. Mr. Weasley then proceeds to go and have a drink with Hermione's parents as they're muggles, and the rest of the gang all head to Gringotts. We see a very quick sequence of the Gringotts cart ride down to the vaults, and Harry uncomfortably watches Mrs. Weasley opening her very empty vault and sweeping the entire contents into her bag. After Gringotts, we'll then see a montage of Harry, Ron and Hermione going around Diagon Alley to pick up their various school supplies before they head to Flourish and Blotts. As they arrive at the bookshop, they see that it is heaving with people, and they notice a sign outside saying,
Gilderoy Lockhart will be signing copies of his autobiography, Magical Me, today, 12:30 to 4:30 p.m.
The rest of the scene plays out exactly like the movie, with Lockhart spotting Harry, presenting him with his entire works of books, and announcing that he will be the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts. Afterwards, they bump into Draco Malfoy, who they have a cold conversation with, before Lucius Malfoy arrives and Mr. Weasley. We then have the incredible moment from the book where Lucius Malfoy and Mr. Weasley have a massive fight in the bookshop after Lucius insults the book that Ginny is holding. The fight knocks over bookshelves, people scream, and the twins shout, "Get him, Dad!" Hagrid pulls the two apart. Lucius furiously thrusts the books back at Ginny, and him and Draco storm out of the shop. Sequence 1 of the episode then ends with the Weasleys walking back to the Leaky Cauldron, with Fred saying,
He was pleased. Didn't you hear him as we were leaving? He was asking that bloke from the Daily Prophet if he'd be able to work the fight into his report. Said it was all publicity.
We cut to black to end Sequence 1. Sequence 2 opens up on a frantic morning at the Burrow, with the Weasleys and Harry scrambling around as they are trying to leave for King's Cross Station. We then see some really snappy shots of the car leaving the Burrow, but hastily returning to collect forgotten bits and bobs. This includes Ginny screaming that she forgot her diary. Once again, this is a nice little Easter egg that I really want the show to include, as in my opinion, Chamber of Secrets is phenomenal at laying these little breadcrumbs of clues throughout the story that you only really pick up on subsequent readings. Finally, after many return trips, the car pulls up at King's Cross Station, and the rest of the entire sequence will then play out almost identically to the movies, with just a couple of changes here and there. Harry and Ron are unable to get through the barrier. They decide to take the car and fly to Hogwarts. Obviously, the show has a lot more time to cover this sequence of events, so we will see a few more shots of Harry and Ron in the car enjoying the journey with a fat pack of toffees in the glove compartment. We'll also see some beautiful shots of the car going over the countryside, surfing over the clouds, before Harry and Ron start getting incredibly hot and tired. I don't really want the show to include the scene of Harry falling out of the car that was in the movies. I know this was done to make the whole thing more cinematic, but I would prefer the show to follow the book's approach to the journey to Hogwarts, especially as we will be getting a pretty major action scene coming up in a couple of moments. They finally arrive at Hogwarts before the car splutters and dies, before crashing into a giant tree. As Harry breathes a sigh of relief and Ron looks devastatingly at his broken wand, the tree starts to batter the car. After a few frantic moments, the engine kicks into life, Ron slams the reverse pedal, and they shoot out of the tree's reach. The car then furiously ejects Harry and Ron before shooting off into the Forbidden Forest. The sequence ends with Ron staring hopelessly at the retreating car. Sequence 3 of the episode is going to be a little bit shorter than Sequence 1 and 2, as they were both fairly action-packed and long. It's essentially just going to cover the rest of Chapter 5 of the book. The sequence actually starts in the Great Hall, where we see the new batch of first years nervously approaching the sorting hat. The camera pans over the heads of students sitting at the 4 house tables before it moves to a window where we see Harry and Ron with their faces pressed up against it. They discuss the fact that they can't see Snape anywhere, and as they are theorizing where he might be, they hear a cold voice behind them. They spin around, and to their horror, they see Snape smiling down at them. Snape then escorts them through the castle to the dungeons and into his office. The rest of the scene plays out like in the movie, with Snape interrogating the pair of them before Dumbledore and McGonagall arrive. After informing them that they aren't going to be expelled, but they will receive detentions and letters home, McGonagall flicks her wand and conjures up sandwiches and pumpkin juice for Harry and Ron before the three professors leave the office. After eating, Harry and Ron head up to the Gryffindor common room, and as the fat lady's portrait opens, they are greeted by a wall of noise from the other Gryffindors. Older students who Harry doesn't know claps him on the back and congratulates him, whilst Fred and George shout, "Why didn't you call us back?" The episode ends with a close-up on Harry's face. Unable to control himself, his face splits into a wide grin. We cut to black to end episode 2. I know I usually end the episodes on a cliffhanger, but I think it's nice to have a little bit of variety here and there, with Harry experiencing a range of emotions. Harry isn't always in danger or feeling down. As I mentioned in the previous episode, he has moments where he's quick-witted and cheeky and quite enjoys breaking the rules. So what did you think of my breakdown for Season 2, Episode 2? Let me know down in the comments, along with any other suggestions that you might have for this episode or for the season as a whole. I'll be back next time to plan out my dream vision for Harry Potter on HBO Season 2, Episode 3.